Welcome to your custom deep dive. We've prepared something incredibly special today, custom tailored just for you.
Yeah, we are so excited to get into this one.
Because you shared a really fascinating piece of source material with us, and we are gonna just tear it down to the studs today.
Oh, absolutely. We're going through every layer of
But
this.
before we get into the actual text, I want you, the listener, to mentally place yourself in a very specific scenario.
Okay, setting the stage.
Right. So if you have ever trained for a marathon or even just forced yourself through a really punishing physical workout when you were already running on empty.
Like when you're just completely gassed.
Exactly. If you've done that, you know about the wall.
Oh, yeah. The wall is brutal.
It is. It's that very specific, undeniable psychological barrier you hit when, the lactic acid is pooling in your muscles.
Your glycogen stores are completely tapped out.
Right. And your brain just shifts from merely guiding your body to actively negotiating with it to stop.
It's basically your nervous system screaming at you, saying, further exertion is dangerous, shut it down.
Yes. But typically, you keep pushing. Why? Because you have a fixed point of reference.
You know where the finish line is.
Exactly. You know exactly where it is. You can visualize the end of the suffering.
Right.
Now, take that scenario, hit that absolute physiological and mental wall, but add this, horrifying twist. Imagine that every time you take a physical step forward, the finish line somehow actively retreats 2 steps back.
Oh, man, that is a nightmare.
It really is. The geometry of the space you are moving through defies you. The rules of the race fundamentally change while you are running it.
Wow.
And the physical environment itself starts actively suppressing your ability to move.
Well, and that removes the foundational psychological crutch that allows human beings to endure pain in the first place.
Right, because the finish line is gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The moment you strip away a fixed finish line, you are no longer participating in a test of endurance or a race. You're shifting into a paradigm of raw, unmitigated survival.
Survival, not a race.
Right. Because of the human brain, it uses the anticipation of relief to dose the body with necessary neurotransmitters.
Like dopamine, adrenaline, stuff like that.
Exactly, to push through pain. When you become untethered from any promise of completion, the brain just stops providing those chemical lifelines.
It just cuts you off.
Pretty much. You are running an engine with no oil, relying entirely on the structural integrity of the metal, which, will inevitably grind itself to dust.
Okay, that grinding destruction, that suffocating endless slog where progress is an illusion and the ground itself literally hates you.
Yeah.
That is the entire focus of our mission today. We are unpacking the mechanics of how a storyteller crafts an experience of pure, unrelenting despair.
Which is such a massive challenge for a writer, isn't it?
It really is. How do you write a story where you purposefully strip away all forward momentum, all hope, and all comfort without making the audience just close the book and walk away?
It's a huge tightrope walk.
So, to figure out how this is executed, we are diving into a brilliant video essay from the Princess Toy Nerd YouTube channel.
Fantastic channel, by the way.
Really is. The review is titled Relentless Resilience, and it zeroes in on a notoriously brutal stretch of literature.
The Return of the King.
Yes. Specifically Book 6, Chapter 2, which is called The Land of Shadow.
A very fitting title.
Our goal for you today is to decode the architecture of this specific chapter and understand how the author builds this pressure cooker of narrative exhaustion.
Well, and what makes the Princess Toy Nerd analysis so compelling is its recognition that the Land of Shadow operates on completely different structural principles than the rest of the narrative.
Right, it feels totally different.
Completely. In the chapters immediately prior, we experience high-stakes action, massive battles, the adrenaline of rescue.
Big cinematic stuff.
Exactly. The author gives the reader these soaring emotional highs. But this chapter, it's the morning after, all the adrenaline has evaporated.
Just gone.
We're left with this sobering, agonizing, microscopic reality of moving 2 small bodies across a hostile landmass.
And the review isolates the specific literary tools used to make this transition from a sweeping epic to a claustrophobic survival horror.
Yeah, survival horror is a great way to put it.
Let us start with the physical space, because the video essay makes this foundational argument about the setting right out of the gate.
The geography itself.
Right. Princess Toy Nerd states that Mordor in this chapter is not just a backdrop. The review uses a very specific word. It calls the environment an assault.
An assault.
Yeah. And I want to dig into the mechanics of that. The video points out the air is choked with ash, the ground is cracked and barren, and the sky is this merciless dome offering zero relief.
Just absolute hostility everywhere you look.
Exactly. There's no direction, just the looming presence of the mountain, but calling a setting an assault suggests it has agency.
Right.
How does a writer elevate a landscape from just being a painted backdrop to functioning as an active combatant?
Well, we really need to rethink how setting functions in traditional storytelling to understand the subversion happening here.
Okay, break that down for me.
Normally, a setting is the stage. The characters are the actors, the plot provides the action, and the setting just provides context.
Like it tells us if we're in a cyberpunk dystopia or a Regency ballroom.
Exactly. The setting might pose a passive challenge, like a steep hill to climb,
Yeah.
or a river to cross.
Sure.
But an assault, as the review astutely labels it, implies active hostility. The author achieves this by weaponizing the physiological requirements of life.
Weaponizing physiology.
Wow. Take the ash in the air. Respiration is an involuntary baseline function. You don't have to think to breathe.
Usually no.
But by filling the air with particulate matter, the author makes breathing a conscious, painful effort. The environment is taxing the character's physical reserves simply for existing within it.
You are saying the setting shifts from being the place where the conflict happens to literally being the conflict itself.
Precisely. Consider the cracked, barren ground the video highlights. In a standard journey narrative, walking is the mechanism of progression.
You just walk from A to B.
Right. But on unstable, jagged terrain, every footfall requires micro-adjustments in the ankles, the knees, the core.
So it's not mindless walking.
No, it demands focus. It burns additional calories. The environment is actively extracting energy from the characters at a microscopic level.
Just constantly draining them.
Exactly. Creating a deficit that cannot be replenished because, as the review notes, there's no water, no soft ground, no sunlight.
You know, the closest modern equivalent I can think of is a sensory deprivation tank, but inverted.
Oh, that's an interesting analogy.
Think about it. The whole point of sensory deprivation is to place you in body temperature water, pitch black, absolute silence.
Wow.
You remove all external input so your brain can stop processing and reach a state of pure equilibrium.
Right, to relax.
But this landscape is a dark mirror of that concept. Instead of neutral water, you are suspended in abrasive grit.
Ash and dust.
Yeah. Instead of calming darkness, you have this suffocating, shadowless gray smog that forces you to strain your optic nerves just to see your own hands.
And instead of silence.
Instead of silence, there is the implied low-frequency hum of dread.
That is a highly functional model for understanding what the author is doing to the character's nervous systems.
Because it's sensory overload, not deprivation.
Exactly. In a true sensory deprivation tank, the lack of stimuli lowers your cortisol levels.
Right.
In this inverted scenario, the constant barrage of low-grade negative stimuli spikes the cortisol and keeps it elevated indefinitely.
Because your body thinks it's in danger 24/7.
The brain is constantly receiving danger signals: heat, abrasion, thirst, unstable footing, but there is no singular predator to fight or flee from.
You can't just punch the ash in the air.
No, you can't. It is a diffuse, omnipresent threat. When an environment forces a state of hyperarousal, but offers absolutely zero resources for recovery, the biological system begins to consume itself.
Wow, it consumes itself.
The journey ceases to be about conquering the land and becomes entirely about managing the rate of your own internal decay.
That is bleak. But if the characters are experiencing this rapid internal decay, the storyteller has to find a way to transmit that specific feeling to the person holding the book.
The reader has to feel it too.
Right. And Princess Toynard makes a brilliant connection here. The review points out that the physical environment of this chapter dictates the actual pacing of the prose.
Yes, the syntax itself changes.
Because Frodo and Sam are starving, dehydrated, and exhausted, the video notes that every step costs them. But you cannot just tell the reader, hey, they are really tired.
It doesn't work. Show, don't tell.
Exactly. The author has to build that exhaustion into the text itself.
The translation of physical exhaustion into narrative pacing is one of the most technically demanding feats in literature.
It sounds impossible.
It's incredibly hard. The review observes that the pacing in The Land of Shadow is deliberately, oppressively slow. The plot barely inches forward.
Right, like almost nothing happens.
But the mechanics behind that slow burn are what make it effective. A writer controls time and tempo through syntax, sentence structure, word choice, paragraph length.
Okay, so if I want scene to feel fast.
If an author wants a scene to feel fast, they use short, Declarative sentences,
Mhm.
active verbs, minimal adjectives.
He ran, he jumped, he swung the sword.
Exactly. The eye moves quickly down the page, mirroring the speed of a sword fight or a chase.
But if I am writing a scene where two characters are just dragging their feet through ash for days on end, I have to invert that entire formula.
Right.
I would assume you use longer, meandering sentences. Maybe you pile on clauses that force the reader to pause, to reread, to mentally trudge through the paragraph.
You utilize techniques like polysyndeton.
Polly what?
Polysyndeton. It's the deliberate repetition of conjunctions like and.
Oh, okay. Give me an example of that.
So instead of saying, they walked over rocks, ash, and pits, a writer might structure it as, they walked over the jagged rocks and through the choking ash and down into the lightless pits.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel the difference. It drags.
It forces the reader's internal monologue to slow down. The rhythm becomes a trudge.
It's literally exhausting to read.
Furthermore, the author denies the reader the dopamine hit of narrative progress. There are no sudden twists, no exciting discoveries, no dynamic dialogue exchanges.
Just walking.
The paragraphs become dense blocks of descriptive misery, mirroring the visual density of the smog the characters are walking through.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though. If we look at this from a purely commercial storytelling perspective, this sounds like a disaster.
Whoa.
I mean, if I am an editor and my author hands me the crucial climax of their epic fantasy, and the pacing is a deliberate, agonizing crawl where nothing happens except characters feeling miserable, I'm going to push back.
A lot of editors would.
Right. Doesn't this structurally risk alienating the audience? You are asking the reader to voluntarily participate in an incredibly unpleasant, boring experience right when they are conditioned to expect a massive payoff.
It is a massive risk.
Why take that risk? Why doesn't the author just use a montage? They walked for 10 hard days, and then they arrived at the mountain.
Because a montage provides information without demanding empathy.
Okay, unpack that.
If you simply summarize the journey, the reader registers the fact logically. They think, okay, they had a hard time. But literature, at its highest level, is an empathy engine.
An empathy engine. I like that.
The author's goal here is not to inform you about the difficulty. It is to simulate the difficulty within your own mind.
So they want you to suffer a little bit.
Yes, it is a tremendous risk. The reader might put the book down, but the author is betting that the emotional investment built up over the previous volumes will keep the reader engaged.
You've come this far, you're not going to quit now.
Exactly. The oppressive pacing forces a collapsing of the distance between the comfortable reader and the suffering character.
That makes so much sense. When you, as the reader, begin to feel a sense of fatigue reading the chapter, when you feel that frustrated urge for something, anything, to just happen, you are experiencing a fractional echo of the character's despair.
Precisely.
So the discomfort isn't a bug in the writing, it is the central feature. The author is hazing the reader.
Hazing the reader. That is an unconventional way to phrase it, but structurally accurate.
I mean, it feels like it.
The slow pacing is a crucible. If the author had given us a montage and skipped straight to the mountain, the sheer mind-breaking impossibility of the mission would not register.
We wouldn't believe they actually went through hell.
We have to feel the friction of time passing to understand what the characters are sacrificing. It ensures that the journey feels less like an adventure and more like a terminal diagnosis.
Oof, a terminal diagnosis. And that leads perfectly into the internal ecosystem of the characters, specifically Frodo.
Right, because the external environment is only half the battle.
Exactly, because the environment is attacking them from the outside. But the Princess Toynard video is very careful to highlight that Frodo is facing a much more insidious threat from the inside.
The ring.
We know he is carrying the ring, but the review notes a distinct shift in how the ring functions in this specific chapter.
It changes.
It is no longer just a heavy piece of gold jewelry. The video describes it as having evolved into an active presence. It drains his strength, isolates him, and fundamentally alters his personality.
Yeah?
The reviewer concludes that by the time they are deep in Mordor, Frodo is simply not the same person who started the journey.
What the review captures here is the transition of the ring from an objective artifact into a psychological parasite.
A parasite, okay.
To understand the mechanics of this, we have to look at how biological parasites function. A parasite does not merely hitch a ride on a host. It integrates itself into the host's central nervous system.
It takes over.
It begins to rewrite the host's behavioral imperatives to serve the parasite's survival, often at the direct expense of the host's well-being.
Like those weird nature documentaries.
Think of the Ophiocordyceps fungus that infects ants, hijacking their motor function.
Yes, exactly like that.
Early in the narrative, the ring is external. Frodo can keep it in a pocket or on a chain. He has a robust psychological immune system.
Bolstered by friendship, food, and hope.
Right, and that keeps the artifact's influence at bay.
But once they cross into this hostile environment, that immune system is completely shattered. He is starving, dehydrated, and operating on zero sleep. The walls of the fortress are breached.
Exactly. The lack of physiological resources strips away the psychological defenses.
It's all connected.
The artifact stops being something he carries and becomes an infection that occupies his cognitive space. It requires an immense, continuous expenditure of willpower just to prevent the parasite from completely taking the wheel.
You know, when I was listening to the video essay break this down, the analogy that kept coming to my mind wasn't just biological, it was astrophysical.
Astrophysical.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about that.
It sounds like a black hole has opened up inside Frodo's prefrontal cortex.
Oh, I like that.
Think about it. A black hole has immense gravity, and it bends the fabric of space-time. Anything that gets close to the event horizon gets pulled in and spaghettified.
Just completely stretched and crushed.
That is what is happening to Frodo's identity. Every single stray thought, every memory of his home, every impulse to speak to Sam, it all gets caught in the gravitational pull of resisting the ring, and it gets sucked into the void.
The physics analogy works perfectly to explain the behavioral changes the review highlights.
Because he stops talking, right.
The video notes that Frodo becomes quieter and more distant. From the outside, it looks like he is shutting down.
Like he's just giving up.
But internally, utilizing your black hole analogy, 100% of his cognitive bandwidth is engaged in resisting the gravitational pull of the artifact.
He's fighting a war inside his head.
There is simply no energy left to power his external personality. The mechanism of communication requires intent, formulation of thought, and physical vocalization.
And that takes calories.
Those processes require mental calories that Frodo literally does not have to spare.
Which creates this devastating paradox. He is enduring the most profound isolation imaginable, but he is doing it while walking 2 feet away from his best friend.
He's entirely alone while next to his companion.
Right. He is entirely locked inside his own collapsing mind, fighting a microscopic silent war that Sam cannot see, cannot touch, and cannot assist with.
It's tragic.
That loss of self, the fact that his innocence, his humor, his capacity for joy are being fed into the furnace just to generate the raw willpower to take one more step is horrific.
It is the ultimate tragedy of the chapter, and it highlights a brutal truth about trauma.
Which is?
We often view survival as merely keeping the biological organism breathing.
Yeah.
But the review's assertion that he is not the same hobbit points to the fact that psychological survival often requires the amputation of the self.
Wow. Amputation of the self.
Frodo is jettisoning the very traits that make him who he is just to keep the vessel moving forward.
If Frodo is rapidly becoming a closed system that is collapsing inward, the external reality, the navigation, the physical survival has to be managed by someone else.
Somebody has to actually get them there.
And this is where the Princess Toynard video spends a significant amount of time analyzing the role of Sam. The review calls him the anchor.
The anchor. Perfect word for it.
And what I find so fascinating about this breakdown is how it defines his heroism. It is not defined by cinematic action.
No, not at all.
He is not swinging a sword. He is not giving a rousing speech to the troops. He is not discovering a hidden magical power. The video states his role is defined purely by persistence and small, consistent acts of care.
The review is highlighting a profound subversion of traditional genre expectations here.
How so?
If we look at the broader landscape of speculative fiction, heroism is inextricably linked to kinetic power and spectacle.
Right, the big action scenes.
The hero is the one who charges the enemy lines, slays the beast, or outsmarts the villain in a battle of wits.
It's what looks cool on a poster?
Exactly. Those actions provide an immediate, visible impact. They offer a dopamine spike to the reader or viewer.
We cheer when the good guy punches the bad guy.
But what the author of this narrative understands, and what the review brilliantly uncovers, is that in a true survival scenario, kinetic heroism is absolutely useless.
You can't punch your way out of this.
You cannot decapitate starvation with a broadsword. You cannot outsmart a toxic atmosphere.
I want to push back on the idea of kinetic heroism a bit, though, because modern media has essentially trained us to equate action with importance.
Oh, completely.
We want the superhero landing. We want the dramatic sacrifice. Are we saying that Sam's actions, which the video describes as rationing dwindling supplies and offering quiet encouragement, are somehow on the same level as a warrior holding the gate against an army?
Yes.
Because visually, rationing water is incredibly boring.
Visually, yes, it is devoid of spectacle. But psychologically and functionally, it is vastly more demanding.
Okay, you're going to have to explain that. How is giving someone a sip of water harder than fighting a troll?
Let's break down the mechanics of the warrior holding the gate versus Sam managing the water supply.
Okay, let's do it.
The warrior at the gate is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. Their body is operating in a chemically altered state of hyperfocus and pain suppression.
Fight or flight.
Right. The biological imperative is simple. Kill the threat in front of you. It requires immense physical skill, but very little complex logistical cognition.
You just react.
Now look at Sam. He is operating entirely without the benefit of adrenaline. His body is depleted. He is acutely aware of his hunger, his thirst, and his pain.
There's no adrenaline to numb it.
Exactly. And in that state of absolute depletion, he has to perform the exhausting cognitive labor of logistics.
The heroism of maintenance.
Yes, the heroism of maintenance. It is the unglamorous, repetitive, exhausting work of keeping the baseline requirements of life met.
Which is so hard when you're that tired.
Sam has to calculate the exact volume of water they have left, estimate the unknown distance to their destination, calculate the evaporation rate, factor in Frodo's declining state, and make a conscious, rational decision to deny his own agonizing thirst in order to force a few drops into Frodo's mouth.
Oh man, just hearing that makes me thirsty.
He has to do this while managing his own psychological despair. Making those hundreds of micro-decisions every single day when your prefrontal cortex is starved of glucose requires a level of sustained willpower that eclipses the sudden burst of energy required for combat.
That reframes the entire concept of a hero for me.
It's powerful, isn't it?
The people who keep the machinery of life running when everything else is falling apart, it is essentially the ultimate form of caregiver fatigue, taken to a mythic extreme.
Caregiver fatigue is a brilliant way to put it.
He is holding the structural integrity of his friend's reality together by sheer force of will. But what makes this even more suffocating, and the video essay transitions into this beautifully, is that he isn't just doing this in a vacuum.
No, they are surrounded by danger.
He is doing this logistical maintenance while being actively hunted.
The psychological warfare aspect of the chapter.
Right. Because the landscape feels dead, but the review emphasizes that there is a constant suffocating layer of underlying tension.
It's never truly quiet.
It points out that even when nothing is actively happening on the page, no battles, no dialogue danger is omnipresent.
The orc patrols are moving across the land, and the eye of Sauron is this ever-watchful panopticon.
Exactly. Because of this external pressure, every single mundane decision carries monumental life-or-death risk.
We need to examine the specific mechanism of tension the author is employing here. It's not the tension of the jump scare. It is the tension of the crushed depth.
Crushed depths, like a submarine.
The analogy I would use here is deep-sea diving.
I like that much better than the generic minefield analogy people usually use for tension. Talk me through the deep-sea diving mechanism.
Okay. When you are in a submarine at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the immediate threat is not a sea monster attacking the hull.
Right, it's not Jaws.
The threat is the water pressure itself. Millions of tons of water pressing down on every square inch of the metal. You cannot fight the pressure. You can only hope the structural integrity of your vessel holds.
And Sauron's gaze is the pressure.
Yes, Sauron's gaze, the omnipresent threat of discovery the review mentions, functions exactly like that hydrostatic pressure. It is a suffocating, invisible weight.
Constantly pushing in.
If there is even a microscopic fracture in the hull, a single misstep on a loose rock, a shadow cast at the wrong angle, a momentary lapse in vigilance to fall asleep, the pressure breaches the hull.
And the destruction is instantaneous and total.
Exactly.
And the psychological toll of existing at crushed depth is that it completely alters your perception of the mission. The Princess Toynard video makes a crucial observation about how the narrative stakes mutate in this chapter.
They shrink.
Right. In a normal story, the driving question is, will the hero achieve the objective? But when you are at the bottom of the trench, your brain cannot process a question that large.
The cognitive scope shrinks. When a human mind is subjected to that level of sustained, unresolvable threat, abstract concepts like saving the world or destroying the artifact lose their meaning.
You're just trying to survive the next 5 minutes.
The brain focuses entirely on the immediate biological imperative. The review astutely points out that the core question of the narrative devolves from will they succeed to how much longer can they last.
How much longer can they last? That completely shatters the illusion of progress.
It fundamentally changes the journey.
Think about how progress normally works. If you are hiking to a cabin, every step you take brings you closer to safety, a warm bed, and food. The tension decreases as you approach the goal.
You feel relief building.
But the review notes that the closer Frodo and Sam get to the mountain, the more fragile everything becomes.
Because the geography of their objective is fundamentally hostile. The mountain is the epicenter of the enemy's power.
Right, the closer you get, the worse it is.
Therefore, every step forward does not relieve the pressure. It increases it. Every step brings them physically closer to the panopticon of the eye.
They're walking into the pressure.
It moves them further away from any mathematical possibility of rescue or retreat. Progress, in this specific narrative geometry, is indistinguishable from doom.
Progress is doom. It is a terrifying paradox. The only way to win is to walk directly into the center of the meat grinder.
Yeah.
And that realization that they are willfully walking into what they believe is their own certain destruction brings us to the culmination of the video essay's analysis.
The core theme.
Right. After breaking down the assaultive environment, the oppressive pacing, the internal erosion, the crushing logistics, and the deep-sea pressure of the tension.
All of it building up.
The review makes a profound argument about the thematic core of the entire journey. It argues that this specific sequence completely redefines the concept of courage.
It is the philosophical keystone of the entire narrative, and the reviewer synthesizes it perfectly.
How does it redefine it?
To understand how courage is redefined here, we have to look at what courage normally entails. Classically, courage involves confronting danger because you believe your actions will result in a victory or a positive outcome.
Like a soldier.
A soldier charges a hill, believing that capturing the hill will win the battle. There's an expectation of success that fuels the bravery.
But Frodo and Sam don't have that. They have zero expectation of success.
None.
The review explicitly states they are not driven by confidence. They don't have a tactical advantage. They know, logically, that they are two starving people walking into the heart of a supernatural military-industrial complex.
Exactly. By systematically stripping away the resources, the environment, the physiological strength, and finally, the psychological promise of victory, the author isolates the most elemental, irreducible form of bravery.
Which is what?
It is the courage of pure necessity. The review points out that they don't know if they will make it. They simply know they must try.
Because if they don't, everything ends.
They are acting not out of hope, but out of a rigid, moral imperative that transcends their own survival. When you continue to put one foot in front of the other, even when every logical circuit in your brain is screaming that failure is mathematically guaranteed and your death is imminent.
You're operating on something else entirely.
You are no longer just being brave. You are enacting a philosophy of stubborn, relentless resilience.
Relentless resilience, the title of the video.
There it is.
The fate of this entire fictional world doesn't hinge on the sweeping armies or the returning kings we saw in the previous chapters.
Nope, it's much smaller than that.
It hinges on the stubborn refusal of two incredibly small, broken people to stop walking. And returning to the structural question we discussed earlier regarding the slow, painful pacing.
Why the author tortures the reader.
Exactly. The review makes a final argument that this redefinition of courage only works because the author forced the reader to sit in the misery with them.
The concept of catharsis in literature requires a preceding buildup of tension and suffering. If a victory is easily achieved, the emotional payoff for the reader is shallow.
We didn't earn it.
The review argues that by forcing the audience to endure the oppressive pacing, the sensory deprivation, and the psychological erosion, the author ensures that the final climax is undeniably earned.
We sweat for it.
We have felt the weight of the ring through the syntax. We have felt the abrasive ash through the descriptive language.
Because we lived it with them, sentence by agonizing sentence.
Because the reader has been subjected to a microscopic simulation of the trauma, whatever resolution occurs at the edge of the fire will impact the reader with the force of a physical blow. The discomfort is the architectural foundation of the climax's emotional resonance.
That makes me look at modern storytelling and, frankly, our own patience as consumers of media in a very critical light.
Oh, we are terrible at this now.
We really are. We are currently living in an era of narrative efficiency. We want the plot to move quickly. We want characters to exchange witty, rapid-fire dialogue.
Give us the content right now.
Yes, we want the heroes to project confidence, face a temporary setback, and then overcome it with a spectacular display of power. We are addicted to the dopamine drip of easy victories and smooth pacing.
It's junk food.
But by demanding that constant entertainment, have we lost our capacity to appreciate the slow, agonizing burn of relentless resilience? Are we, as an audience, still willing to sit in the ash and the silence and the despair, knowing that the payoff requires us to endure genuine discomfort?
It is a valid critique of modern media consumption. We are increasingly conditioning ourselves to reject friction.
We hate friction.
But as the Princess Toynard analysis demonstrates, friction is where the deepest human truths are revealed.
Because life has friction.
A story that smooths out all the rough edges might be entertaining, but it rarely achieves profundity. Real life is very rarely a series of rapid cinematic victories.
Right.
For most people confronting chronic illness, systemic poverty, or deep grief, life resembles the land of shadow. It requires the unglamorous heroism of maintenance.
Getting up every single day and doing the hard thing.
It requires the stubborn resilience to face a hostile environment and make the agonizing micro-decision to keep going when progress feels like an illusion. Stories that capture that specific friction validate the hardest parts of the human experience.
Validate the hardest parts of the human experience. That is a perfect way to synthesize the power of this text.
It's what makes it a masterpiece.
So, to recap the incredible microscopic journey we have just taken through the Princess Toynard video essay on The Land of Shadow.
A long journey.
Very long. We began by dissecting how the author transforms the setting of Mordor from a passive backdrop into an active, assaultive combatant that weaponizes the basic physiological need to breathe and walk.
The environment as the villain.
Yes. Then we explored the deeply metrical literary mechanics of the pacing, unpacking how dense syntax and polysynoton are used to simulate physical exhaustion and force the reader to experience a fractional echo of the character's misery.
The empathy engine.
We examined the terrifying biological reality of Frodo's internal erosion, comparing the ring to a parasite or a cognitive black hole that consumes his identity simply to generate the willpower to survive.
Amputating the self.
Then we reframed the concept of heroism by analyzing Sam's role not as an action star, but as the master of logistical maintenance, burning his own cognitive reserves to manage their survival.
The ultimate caregiver.
We looked at the psychological crush depth of the omnipresent tension and how it mutates the narrative question from, will they succeed, to how long can they last?
Progress is doom.
And finally, we explored how stripping away all hope and expectation of victory reveals the purest form of courage, the relentless, stubborn resilience to act purely out of necessity.
Princess Toynard analysis is a masterclass in reading not just for plot, but for structural and emotional mechanics.
It really is. It changes how you read the whole book.
But, the review's final observation regarding Frodo's fundamental change leaves us with a deeply unsettling implication regarding the nature of sacrifice.
Okay, lay it on us.
The video posits that the world is saved by this grinding, brutal endurance, but that Frodo is irreversibly altered by the parasite he carried.
He doesn't just bounce back.
No. It forces us to confront a haunting concept. If saving the world requires a level of resilience so brutal that it systematically spaghettifies and destroys the core of your identity.
Using that black hole analogy.
Exactly. Does that mean the ultimate hidden cost of true heroism is that the hero can never actually return to the world they sacrificed everything to save?
Wow, what a heavy, lingering thought to walk away with.
It is.
The idea that the vessel survives, but the person who started the journey is gone.
They're just gone.
Well, if you want to dive deeper into this level of psychological tension, the mechanics of high-stakes storytelling, and incredibly thoughtful analysis of fandom material, you owe it to yourself to check out the source of today's conversation.
Highly recommend it.
Go find the Princess Toynard channel on YouTube and watch Relentless Resilience for yourself. Their work provides the kind of deep literary excavation that fundamentally changes how you read a book.
It's worth every minute.
Thank you for spending this time with us, for enduring the slow pacing, and for sitting in the ash with us to explore the mechanics of survival. Keep questioning the media you consume, keep exploring the hidden layers of your favorite stories, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.